We have so much cool stuff to talk about and speculate on here, from new armor sets, weapons, and abilities that look like they're going to be arriving in the third DLC, which also seems to be based in the realm of Svartalfheim. Now, big spoilers inbound here, folks, and no bamboozles. This stuff hasn't been confirmed yet, so do get your salt shaker ready. But of course, all of this information is thanks to Pedder, who's the one who's found all of it in the game files and given us something to chat about and speculate on. So let's get going. Now, not to intentionally redirect you elsewhere, but if you haven't seen this video yet, it generally may be worth a quick watch, as a lot of the stuff that we discuss here in this video builds upon what we've actually covered in that one. And it's important to me to not actually waste your time by repeating lots of the cool stuff from there and just slinging it in this video. But as far as a kind of recap of the story goes, it does look like this third DLC is going to be based in the realm of Svartalfheim, which is actually home to the Dark Elves and Dwarves, which also seems to be under attack by an invasion force from Muspelheim and Jotunheim, who are actually the fire and ice giants respectively. It does seem that Odin travels to Svartalfheim with the intent on rescuing his kidnapped son Baldir, and reluctantly joins the fight against the Muspels and the Jotun, siding with the Dwarven rebellion because they've told him that they can actually help him find Baldir with their ancient Dwarven magic. Now the Muspels, on the other hand, they actually seem to be searching for a weapon hidden in Svartalfheim somewhere, which they can then use against Asgard, which potentially leads to Ragnarok. So that's what we've kind of deduced so far in terms of this storyline. It sounds like a lot of fun, but we've got a lot more to talk about here thanks to Pedder. Now I think one of the most interesting things about this DLC is that it already states in the game files that we can actually start this expansion without completing the final story of Valhalla. In fact, it goes on to state that we can venture to Svartalfheim and automatically start at the power level of 340 if we haven't yet reached that power level in game. We also get some armor sets and weapons automatically populated in our infantry with a few upgrades, as well as all of the abilities and a few runes that have actually been unlocked for us. So it does look like to me that they want people to directly start this expansion without any kind of prerequisites or requirements, which I think kind of actually makes sense from a business point of view, because they want to try and get new people through the door and into the new content quickly. Now, to actually start the mythological DLC, it does look like we're going to be experiencing visions again under the Council of Valka, which is kind of no surprises there, what we expected. But in fact, we actually have an entry here which states that Svartalfheim invaded, Baldir captive, Frigg murdered. What do these dread visions signify? And then Eivor goes on to say after that perhaps I can reclaim my dream of Svartalfheim, and then subsequently heads across to meet Valka, who then redirects Eivor to the forest, who is going to have to undergo some sort of severe trauma to actually explore this vision more, because a potion just won't do. So I'm hoping for some serious Isu cutscenes here to kick off this DLC, which I think sounds fantastic. Now let's move on to some characters, and the Sons of Ivaldi do look like they're going to be making a pretty bold impression here. And if you actually remember the mythological arc in Asgard, you actually came across a dwarf called Ivaldi who actually worked as Odin's personal blacksmith to repay a life debt. Well, in Norse mythology, the Sons of Ivaldi were a group of dwarves who actually created very famous artifacts like the Ship of Freya, Odin's spear Gungnir, and Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Now there's several dwarves mentioned in the game files, but one in particular is called Brokir, and he is actually responsible for creating Mjolnir, and of course is part of Ivaldi's sons, and it certainly looks like we're going to be helping him and these sons in their rebellion against these invaders, as dwarven shelters have actually been named and are described as fast travel unlocks here in this DLC. And we'll actually know when we're near one of these dwarven shelters underground, because it's noted in the game files that a flock of birds will be circling it from above, which is pretty cool. Additionally, it seems that we'll be collecting gemstones throughout Svartalfheim and bringing them back to the dwarven shelters, which in turn will allow us to purchase new tattoos, hair and beard designs. And here I am hoping for some new and creative styles, and I'm specifically referencing Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films here because I think some of these would be absolutely banging. Now you've got to check this out, because Pedder has found a picture of the Svartalfheim map in the game files, and this may look like an oddly shaped egg with two lines inside it, but this actually looks like the foundation of the DLC map. Of course, friendly reminder folks, this is all subject to change and this hasn't been confirmed, but for comparison, Pedder has also whipped up the same type of image for England in Valhalla, as well as the Siege of Paris map in Francia. Now what can we see here? Well, it seems like we have 3 regions in this DLC, and the map looks like a similar size to the Siege of Paris DLC, just from what we can kind of objectively observe here. Now that isn't to say that the gameplay time will be as long, but in terms of an actual world size, it does look quite similar. Now when it comes to Svartalfheim, it looks like we've got 3 distinct regions, and actually Pedder has of course found them referenced in the game files, and I'd actually try pronouncing them for you, but we all know that would be a complete car crash, so there we are, they're on your screen right now. But on top of that, Pedder has also found dwarven forges referenced in the game files, and interestingly, these are all named after famous artifacts Ivaldi's sons have actually forged in Norse mythology, including Molyneux and Gungir. And additionally, a big shout out to Jonathan here, who found this location referenced as well. He does a really good video in French, so definitely worth your time if you speak French, of course. But he and Peder have actually found Ivaldi's forged name as a location as well. So this all adds up to Ivaldi's son's storyline looking like it's going to be a big player here in this DLC. And it does seem that we're going to be visiting each forge where all of these famous artifacts have actually been made. And I would actually love to know why, but I think we're just going to have to wait and see. And by the way, folks, if you've learned anything new or felt like you've picked up some solid value from the video so far, a very swift like down below really does help me out, and it would be very kind of you. So thank you very much. Now let's talk about the Valkyrie arena, and it's been explicitly named as such in the game files, which is actually run by a person in the game called Kara. Now Peder says that this isn't the standard arena type event we've actually become accustomed to in the festivals over the last several months. In fact, it seems that we actually have to collect tales of bravery or stories which are kind of distributed around Svartalfheim, which I'm assuming we actually either partake in, like kind of mini side quests, or perhaps they're similar to flying papers with the tales actually written on them. Peder actually suggested that it could even actually be a fighting game, which, to be honest with you, I think is probably the best out of the three ideas. But what do you think about this? Let us know down below. Either way, the main reason that we actually collect these tales is to try and impress Kara, and if she actually ends up being impressed, she's going to bestow some rewards upon us and actually allow us to fight opponents in this Valkyrie's arena that she's currently managing. And if we do actually get inside this arena to fight, we'll be under a variety of different buffs and debuffs. For example, one of the debuffs is taking 50% more range damage and actually not being able to equip arrows to then return the fire. Conversely, another actually states that our Odin powers rotate in terms of selection after using them, so it becomes pretty random. And after we actually win the arena fight, we then pick up arena tokens as well, which, you guessed it, we can then spend at Kara's shop. Intriguingly though, it does seem that we can earn Valorite shards, which Valkyries actually hold in very high regard apparently. So perhaps this is a different type of currency that we can earn in the arena, or perhaps pick up around Svartalfheim, which we can then spend for more exclusive rewards at Kara's shop. Either way, we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. Now let's go over some Odin powers and abilities available for us to use in Svartalfheim, and we did discuss all of these in the previous video, but Peder has of course found some definitive descriptions here and figured out what they actually do. Now it looks like Odin's actually memorized all of his powers, but we only actually have one power, or what it's called in game as a memory slot, where we can actually only use one that we choose. So what we have to do is we then have to level up and unlock another memory slot, which means we can now equip two powers when we're in combat and use them respectively. But to actually use these powers though, we're going to have to collect Huga, or spirits from killed enemies who don't actually possess any Odin powers, and I'm not entirely sure what's actually meant by that. I can't exactly see Jotun or muspels running around with Odin powers themselves, but I imagine it's lower level NPCs who just aren't very good. In any case, after we actually collect these spirits, we then use Odin's bracer, which was actually a gift bestowed on Odin by the dwarves, which actually allows us to capture this spirit or Huga essence from enemies, and I'm assuming we actually pick up this bracer from the dwarves when we arrive in Svartalfheim. Now let's talk about some powers, and the muspel and Jotun glamour ability allows us to trick the minds of the frost and fire giants into thinking that we're actually one of them. We're going to have to tread lightly though, as if we actually sprint or run with this ability, they're actually going to see through our tricks and spotters, and it seems that this lasts for 20 seconds, and it also looks like we can actually assassinate while using it. So anything that gives us more social stealth is a big tick in my eyes. Next we've got the Raven form, and this actually allows us to lift off and experience Svartalfheim from the skies, and we'll actually be able to pick a place to land and then just appear there in Odin form when we pull the trigger, which is pretty cool. And it also seems that we've got 45 seconds to choose where to actually land, so plenty of time to fly around and pick a spot of where you want to appear. Not only that though, because we'll actually be able to teleport while dodging in combat, and we're also going to be able to shoot an arrow at special glowing beacons which will then teleport us next to them. So I can see a lot of mazes and mini games coming up here, folks, but it doesn't stop there, because Peder has really treated us this week. He's also found reference to a resurrection power, and it looks like Ubisoft is going full send on that mythological aspect here and capitalizing on Odin's position as god of the dead. It's named as offensive resurrect in the game files, and we're going to be able to imbue our weapons with fire, which actually disables our finish abilities, but the caveat being is that the enemies we kill are then raised to fight alongside us. These Odin zombies, and I honestly can't think of another word for them to be honest, but they actually last for around about 60 seconds, and I can see this ability being quite ridiculous and incredibly overpowered. And this is not me complaining, by the way, but there doesn't seem to be any reference to a cap on this at all. So if you go ahead and just steamroll a group while this is activated, I think you're probably going to come out the other end with a small army on your hands, which I imagine will be a good laugh and a perfect opportunity for some great photo mode shots. Now let's move on to some armor sets, and Pedder has found reference to 6 so far here, but the question is, do we actually obtain these back in England, or is this going to be just dream armor sets in the mythological world? Well, Pedder has actually found reference to what's called mythical hordes, and it states that progress needs to be made in the main game, where we can then talk to people in Ravensthorpe to actually hear stories of these treasures Svartalfheim holds, and some legends of these actually turn out to be true. So perhaps we do obtain these armor sets in Svartalfheim, speak to someone in Ravensthorpe who then sends us on a quest to claim it in England, and it's got me thinking, could we also pick up the Valkyrie armor set that Hildiran actually speaks about at the end of the mastery challenges, because Jose said to JorRaptor in an interview that we would be able to collect it in the future, and perhaps this is the mechanic he was actually speaking to Yor about. And if you haven't watched that video, by the way, definitely go and check it out, very much worth your time. Now Odin's armor set, it's called the Allfather set in the game files, and we can only assume at this stage that it is the Odin's robes that we have seen throughout the story. Of course this could change, but the benefits of wearing this set state in the game files already that we can actually pick up an increase in assassination damage when we are cloaked and undetected, and Odin's robes look absolutely perfect for that kind of sneaking around stealth build. We also pick up the Fire Giant set, which provides an increase to melee damage when your weapon is on fire, and you also get an increase to melee resistance. Additionally, we have the Jotnar set, which provides us with a protection from Angraboda's portals, specifically our Huga, and I'm going to be going into that in another video, by the way, alongside weapons that Pedder's also found in the game files. So if you would like to be the first to know when that drops, it may be worth clicking that notification bell so you can find your way back easily. Next up, we've got the Dwarven Blacksmith set, and this increases our armor when we actually stun an enemy in combat, and also gives us an increase in speed when we equip the whole set. And when I think of this, I'm thinking Gimli mode engaged here, and I really do hope we get a proper Dwarven armor set. Please be good, Ubisoft, please be good, thank you very much. Now the final 2 sets here, and they're called the Hreidmar's Curse and the Hreidmar's Blessing set. Now the Curse set reduces your health by 33% and evasion to 0, while the Blessing set increases your resources gathered by 20% with a plus 50 rune effect bonus, which is absolutely massive. Now Hreidmar is actually the father of Otter, who was actually killed by Loki, and as repayment, Odin gave Hreidmar a ring that actually turned everything into gold. However, the ring itself was cursed and brought misfortune to anyone who actually used it. Hreidmar ended up actually getting killed by his son Fafnir for the ring, and also, if you remember, we've got Fafnir's Fang as a spear in game, and Fafnir actually, interestingly, is also named as a character that's going to be in this DLC. So it's all very interesting. I'm not sure how that's all linked at the moment. If you've got any ideas, you've got to let us know down below, but it's very cool nonetheless. Saying that though, I'll tell you what is cooler, and it's the awesome people in our Discord community. Another very slick transition there. So do come and join and say hi. It would be great to see you in the lobby. And also, big congratulations to Voynich for winning our Sunday mode photo competition. What an absolute banger of a shot. And also, great work and huge thank you to Pedder. These videos just would not be possible without him, and he spent a huge amount of time getting this information for us so we can chat and speculate on. So thanks very much, mate. Very much looking forward to what you find next. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one, folks. I'm sure I'll catch you in the next video, and as usual, coffee's on me.